Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very risky video about the awareness of drugs. I guess it kind of is with our subjectivity today. Otherwise known as a Tarkov guide. As my terribly cheesy introduction said, today we're looking at drugs. Drugs, I tell you. Not Kuva, unfortunately. Tarkov has no end of depth when it comes to the sort of medical supplies it gives access to you, with a whole array of different effects. And seeing as Tarkov is trying to do its best impression of a reality TV show, we're going to do our best attempt at making you aware of the effects of these drugs and where they're going to be useful and why they're going to be useful, because it doesn't really make it very obvious when you initially look at them. So what with all these different side effects and variants, it's no surprise it's often quite hard to understand what the drugs do, and what drugs are worth using in the first place. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the drugs. Most notably, we're going to be looking at the stims, as these are probably the most gameplay affecting drugs within Tarkov, and the ones that can make or break the difference in a fight, rather than just the ones that either regenerate health or remove pain, because those ones are actually kind of obvious as to what they do. There are currently 6 stims in Tarkov. I mean, technically you can include morphine into that because it has the same animation, but it's just a painkiller. Don't include it. Of these 6 stims, each will provide a very unique benefit to your experience in Tarkov, and often these can be utilized to make a massive difference within a raid, making or breaking an encounter, ranging from being able to run faster to reach your location quicker. Think about it. Popping a stim and being able to reach all the high-value loot points quicker than people even load into the game. Or jamming one of the sticks into your body and slowly starting to watch as your limbs repair themselves, and as you get a sudden surge of mental capacity able to make you make more use of the gear you've got on you. Either way, stims are a fundamental part to Tarkov, and they are worth utilizing. Sounds cool, doesn't it? And it is. Drugs in Tarkov are completely okay. They're really not doing themselves any favors with saying drugs are bad, but, you know, sometimes you gotta be able to win a fight, and sometimes drugs are able to let you do that. Well, at least that's what you would say until you realize each of the drugs has a profound negative effect that we'll have to take into consideration when deciding to use these stimulants. So let's start things off, shall we? We're gonna show you the stim, what it does, the negative effect, and then the situations it'd be good for, cataloging them and making a reference material for those who want to have easy access to know what these things do. Keeping in mind, we're going to keep this as simple as possible for the newer players, whilst also giving the vets reference material should they need it. Keeping in mind as well, all these meds are generally found in the wild in medical areas of maps, or can be bought and bartered from therapists at high levels, or bought cheaply enough off the flea market. The first stim up to the block is the Combat Stimulant Injector J60G Labs. This reddish lipstick looking thing isn't actually your best friend on a boring lackluster date. This is in fact a sharpy pointy needle filled with happy fun times. This one will increase your endurance, strength and stress resistance by 25 each for 180 seconds, meaning you'll be able to have more stamina and run longer due to the endurance. You'll be able to run faster and jump further and hit harder due to the strength. And finally, the stress resistance will make it so you're much less likely to suffer fractures, bleeds, and other ailments. Imagine using that in the middle of a fight and you suddenly realize just how these stimulants are so potent. After the effects have worn off, you'll have 200 seconds of rapidly dropping energy and hydration. To counter this, you'll need to make sure you have hydration and food with you. Best idea for this are things like Vita Juice or some drink that takes up 1 or 2 slots, because it'll then help raise both your hydration and energy levels at the same time. Alternatively, you can bring things like herrings, tushonka, even Alyex, whatever they're called, the chocolate bars. Those things raise your energy super duper fast. But whenever you're bringing a stim with you, you must always take into consideration the negative effects, because otherwise the last thing you want is to get into a raid, pop a stim, and then die of dehydration even after winning a fight. Stim number 2 is the Regenerative Stimulant Injector ETG Change. And although this one does look like a tasty apple-flavored lollipop, it is in fact kind of like a health tonic. This one will remove things like concussion and tremor, and then increase your metabolism and immunity by 20, which isn't really the focus of this stim, but will mean you can gain effects from food for longer, so things like milk and energy drink will be much more efficient. The main thing you get with this is 4.5 health regen to all of your limbs every few seconds, and increases the energy recovery rate as well. So this can act as an emergency bandage for when you don't feel like you have time to manually bandage your limbs. And really, in a combat situation where you may not have time to bandage, is a great way to be able to focus on the fight while casually regenerating your health over time. However, once the effects wear off, you'll suffer from a decrease in your energy, meaning you won't be able to run for as long or regen your energy as quickly to run the distance you need to. And you will also have a reduction in your overall health stats and endurance for 200 seconds. In general, this means that you'll be moving at the speed of snail and you'll be much more vulnerable to death. But after the 200 seconds, your health will normalize again, your endurance will normalize again, and you'll be back to your normal self. Thankfully, this does not affect your hydration or things of that nature. So this is great for a mid-fight situation, boon, and you'll be left unfortunately exposed after the duration. So it's kind of a high reward, but then a bit of a risky situation. So you better make sure you finish them off when you use this, is the ideal situation here. But really, this is something you use in an oh shit moment to make the most use of. Stim number 3 is the Combat Stimulant Injector J60G Labs. This is kind of a bread and butter stim that works well in all scenarios, and combines well as a supplementary stim to the other stims you can use as well. Yeah, supplement by jamming it into your veins like a child jams candy in their mouth, and then we'll reward you with a bonus 50 stamina and increase to your stamina recovery rate by 2.5 points per second for 240 seconds. And realistically, there's almost no bad time to pop this little juice stick. Want to run longer and get to locations first? Pop this with the other stims to run super fast, super long, and super, yeah. Want to be able to aim for longer in a firefight, or just run away like a pussy and outrun your chaser? This sonic stick has got your back. After the effects wear off, however, you will be suffering from probably the least detrimenting effect of any of the stims. A 200-ish second debuff of hand tremor and blurred tunnel vision. Yay? These are easy to work around and are more annoyances than anything, and realistically, when you decide to pop this, you just keep in mind that you might be surprised all of a sudden by your eyes starting to close on themselves. Yeah. Ideally, this is something that I personally like using at the beginning of a fight, or something I use when I know shit's not going my way anymore. Stim number 4 is Propa Tall, and this is my favorite and probably the most potent of all of these stims in terms of what it actually gives you. This is the best of everything and is a must for super high value runs if you really want to use stims. And once again, even though it has a super potent buff, you can imagine that it then has a super potent debuff as well to make up for it. And really, putting this gunk in your system should be a last ditch resort and something that you prepare very evidently for. This will give you so much more potency in a fight, in the form of removing pain and contusions, giving the same benefit as a painkiller for 245 seconds, while also then adding 300 seconds of pure bliss with 20 plus metabolism, vitality, and overall health, and regens 1 health per few seconds as well. So you can see how it's a bit of a combination of everything. That, my good sir, is 300 seconds of pure bliss. Unfortunately, when it all comes crashing down and when it wears off, you'll be left with a killer hangover, 270 seconds of tunnel effect and tremor, and additionally 120 seconds of pain. Just straight up agonizing pain where you'll start moaning like a little bitch. So, you'll have to have a good couple minutes of bad times after the effects wear off, leaving you vulnerable and exposed and all moany. In an ideal situation, this is a pumped up painkiller and should be used in similar situations to the regenerative stimulant, or use it to engage into a fight. Either way, you'll have a good few minutes of pure bliss, where you'll have a very distinct advantage over people who don't use them. Followed then by a couple minutes of absolute hell. Uniquely, these sell for about 11k a piece on the flea market and are the only stim you can actually make yourself in your hideout from the med station at level 3, requiring 1 gold star, 1 ibuprofen, and 2 meds to make 7 of them. Stim number 5 is hemostatic drug I've never known how to say it. Zagustine. It's the purple one. It's purple. Zagustine, probably my least used stim and really only serves as a super fancy bandage for those who don't like the feeling of Russian-made gauze caressing their skin to prevent you from bleeding out after a scab blows off your arm because you forgot to check your corners like a champ and you said you were. Anyway, Zagustine will cauterize your wounds, stopping blood loss and increase your vitality by 20 for 180 seconds, and will completely prevent bleeding status for another 180 seconds as well. And that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's just a souped up bandage, really. You'll then get a hand tremor and lose a crap ton of hydration and metabolism once it wears off. So I guess it's nice in an emergency, but seeing as how bleeds are so bland these days, really this becomes a situational thing to use, and usually is only worth using if you are mid-fight and are bleeding from more than 2 limbs and can't be bothered to deal with having to bandage it up later. The final stim number 6, is probably my second favorite of all the meds, and that is the good old adrenaline. To get your blood pumping, to get your legs moving faster, to get your eyes popping out your skull. Adrenaline acts as a short-term painkiller for 60 seconds, and for that 60 seconds you also gain 20 endurance, strength, and 15 recoil control. So this is definitely a combat stim with its short period of time that you're going to have it active with. Something you use just before or in the middle of a fight to increase your speed, stamina, and additional aim so that you can get a little bit more health regen as well. And really, with the negative effect being a 30-second period of losing energy and hydration faster, I think this serves as a must-have for whenever you want to run kitted or to try get a bit more of an edge in a fight. Now that's what the stims do, but really the world's your oyster with how you use them. Most stims are cheap enough to be able to buy whenever needed, and rarely cost more than 20k per stim for the most costly of them. And really, my recommendation here is twofold. If you are newer to the game, I would not worry about mixing your stims, or heck, even bringing them in the first place, as it does add a level of complexity that might be a bit too much to stay on top of. And likely in the early stage when you get into a fight, you'll likely even forget you have them equipped. So really, the best way to get used to them is to not spend money on them initially, as they'll likely go unused. But instead, if you stumble on them in a raid, use them instead of your regular meds to get used to their effects. Or heck, go into an offline raid and test them there instead. If you're more well versed with the intricacies of Tarkov combat, adding stims can really make or break the potency you bring to a raid, and getting the most out of stims will be the difference between understanding how to mix and match and not understanding. But obviously, only do what's within your budget. At any given time, you should really only worry about stims if you have a bit of disposable income or you find them within a raid. For the most part, they are just complementary to your regular gameplay. So, drugs. They can be good, but they can also be bad. Combine, experiment with all of them. You'll want to utilize them whenever you can. They are situational, and utilize them in combos can push your potency to the nth degree. And even though they do have a big knockoff effect, you can always bring preparation to make sure you counter those knockoffs. And as much as they do seem a bit daunting, they are immensely useful, as with a lot of the meds in this game. So, with that, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do leave me a comment down below as to which of the stims are your favorite, and we'll hopefully see you all top hatters in the next video. Do make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and all that other stuff, and if you feel like joining us, we do stream these on Twitch as well, so if you feel like joining us, we'll happily get you involved in all that kind of good stuff. So, I will see all you top hatters in the next video.